Commissioner Barwick,
Here.
Commissioner Webb,
Here.
Commissioner Stecklin,
Here.
Mayor Absher.
Here. If you'd all join and stand me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, they're on the back. They're not on the back of yours, they're on the back. Sure.
Okay, that brings us to item number 3 on the agenda, which is our public comments and audience to visitors. This is subject to regulation by a couple of different ordinances, copies of which are up here on this countertop, to my left, your right. So is there anybody who'd like to come speak to the council? Mr. Johnson? I'm going to remind you when you're at 4 minutes, okay?
4 minutes? I thought it was 5 minutes.
It is 5 minutes. I'm going to remind you at 4 minutes so that you
Okay,
can...
well, hopefully I won't have to even talk that long. What's the deal, Ken? Can you see anything all right with this? Well, since we're right here, I want you to get a close-up on this, okay? You get it? And here's one other thing. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Can you get a close-up on that? Okay, my name's James E. Johnson, Jimmy Johnson. I'm a Christian patriotic constitutional American. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. And I'm here to expose treason in the United States, basically. I have some things in particular I want to talk about. And maybe I should just talk about those first instead of all these other things. But I want you to know that President Biden, for instance, he's got an earpiece, and you know who's talking to him about everything he does? Barack Obama. Barack Obama said that's what he wanted to do when the next president came around. And that's what's happening. But anyway, I'm going to talk to you about some other things. You know, this year I tried to get you to, there was about 186 pages, and I also made like 172. But I wanted you to distribute that to every person in Marion, every family in Marion, so it would span throughout Illinois and throughout the United States, because it is what is going on right now in our country. I was really concerned. I thought that maybe they were going to collapse the economy in 2019. I think it was Friday the 13th in December. That's not what happened. They released the coronavirus through Universal Freemasonry in China on that day. Now with shock testing and everything, they're going to get ready now. They see how we reacted to it. They're going to release another virus that's going to be much more potent. And it's coming. They've already started, but it's going to be really, really bad. Well, what I'm really here about to talk about, I'm asking you again to make sure that that writing gets into the hands of every household in Marion, so it spans through Illinois and then the rest of the United States. And I'll give you copies of this. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and it actually details, again, everything that's going on in the earth and how these Luciferian Ashkenazi peoples have used white Freemasonry to bring about one world government. But what I want to talk to you in particular right now is Friday the 13th in October. There's a new moon. It's on the 14th, but you've got 1.5 days before and 1.5 days after when it's calculated. And the Illuminati do that. These Luciferian witches of the Council of 13, they use satanic holidays like the 13th, and they assassinate people on September the 11th and May 1st and April 19th. But this particular holiday is really going to be destructive. Usually all these satanic witches during full moons on Friday the 13th stir up a lot of trouble. But on the new moon, they call the black moon, it's more destructive than ever. And it's 2023, just like they did the Federal Reserve Bank in 1913. It's 2023, and that's the Illuminati number. And the reason it's the Illuminati number is because when Jacques de Molay was arrested in 1307 on Friday the 13th, okay, he was the 23rd last Grand Master of the Knights Templars. Now, the Knights Templars, 300 years later, they were Jewish fathers. They created the Masonic Lodge in England in 1770. We had patriotic Freemasons like George Washington and John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and all that, but they composed the Monroe Doctrine to keep Europeans out of our affairs because the Illuminati infiltrated the American lodges in 1882. So anyway, they were all murdered on July 4th, poisoned with arsenic. John Adams, Monroe, and Thomas Jefferson, because they contributed to the Monroe Doctrine. But anyway, ever since then, since 1882, the Europeans, through the House of Temple in Washington, D.C., control all the grand lodges of every state and every local lodge, and they have done this to bring about one world government. Don't be afraid of your worshipful masters or anything like that. But we need to expose what's going to happen, because what I think is going to happen on the 13th of October during this black moon, which means destruction to these Illuminati witches, the Council of 13 under the European Rothschild family. I believe with all my heart
Your time's expired.
they are going to do a nuclear warfare here in the United States of America, and they will target conservative communities. I saw a list about
Your time's expired.
like Tulsa, Oklahoma. But if you don't expire that, it's on you. I'm the prophet of Yahweh. And God told me what to say and who to say it to. It's off my shoulders. It's on your shoulders. You can laugh at me if you want, like you have before. When I said Mark Ward hit 70 home runs a year in advance, they laughed at me because Babe Ruth hit 60 and Roger Maris hit 61. But when he hit 70, they weren't laughing at me. So if you don't think we're going to have a problem if you don't circulate this information throughout the United States or throughout Marion, so let it expand. I've done my part. I paid $10,000 of my money to do it. I mean, you failed in some areas. You've done good in some areas. But that Boys and Girls Club out of your money didn't work, did it?
Nope.
Okay. I'm telling you, the whole United States will be at your door if we have a nuclear warhead and you don't do something. And I'm serious. It will happen. Don't say it won't happen. It will happen.
Anybody else wants to speak to the council? Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, our consent agenda, which is just items A and B. Is there anybody from the council that wants any item or some sub-item removed from the consent agenda and voted upon on a separate vote? Anybody from our guest or our audience want any of these items or sub-items voted upon as a separate vote? Okay, hearing no requests, I'd entertain a motion to pass our consent agenda as presented, items A, 1, and B.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, any questions on the part of the council on any of these items? A, 1, 2, 3, or B, 1 and 2? Corrections to the minutes? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick.
Yay.
Commissioner Webb.
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin.
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Under new business, item 5, building and code services, item A. Is there the applicant that's in question, is the applicant here tonight to appeal the zoning board's ruling? Okay, anybody that was opposed to that action or other interest to that action here tonight as a part of that appeal? Okay, well, since there's nobody here to actually appeal it, then I'll vote to affirm the zoning board, our motion to affirm the zoning board's denial for a special use permit at 1003 Kimberly Court, PIN 0719431014, to have a bakery business built in an R2 general residential zone.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion on this item? I had anticipated having some discussion on it, but since they're not here to appeal, I don't know what the purpose of that would be, personally. You guys want to discuss anything relative to it? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Okay. Item 6, under the street department. Jim, there's some history behind this a little bit, I think, on some trucks that we'd ordered that we haven't been able to get from a different vendor, which I don't know if you're familiar with all of that, or if you want Doug to come up, explain that, or if it matters.
Well, Doug, you can come forward, but I'll, would make a motion or let
Sure.
him talk first? Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the low bid for 2 new 3/4 ton pickup trucks from Absher Arnold Motors at a cost of $47,211 each. And this is a budgeted purchase. I'll let Doug kind of go through the details, please.
With the municipal bidding, when they open for bids, they took so many, and you don't know when the dealership or the company's going to cut off for municipal bidding. Last year, we didn't make the cutoff, or we didn't make the bids, so we got cut off. So this year, we started again, and they didn't open bids for that brand of trucks, so I went with the ones that were accepting bids for municipal at that time, so we tried to make sure to make it this year, which we did. And Absher Arnold was the low bidder for 2 Dodge 2500 3/4 ton trucks.
No trade-ins, right?
No,
Okay.
And what was the total or the price for each? 47,211.
211
47,211.
each, yes. The next bid was 47,660 each.
Is there a second on that motion? Do we have a second?
I'd second that.
Okay. I'm going to abstain on this vote, and I want to, if it has come up, I don't remember, but because of the name in that company name there, it implies perhaps that I have ownership or interest in it, and I do not. That being said, for full sense of propriety, I'm not going to vote on this motion. That dealership does belong to my brother. He either normally, or they don't normally bid, or,
They do.
okay, then they don't normally win. So, but nonetheless, again, I have no ownership interest, which does not, because of that, I could vote. I'm going to abstain on this vote because it is my brother. Any other discussion on this?
Any other questions?
And this breaks my heart because we had originally ordered Ford from not our dealership, of course, but naturally I've got some loyalty there, but nonetheless, they couldn't supply the truck, so that's where we're at. Right?
Yes, that's exactly right, yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Abstain. Okay, item number 7A. I want to, before I introduce Rodney Cabness, to remind us a little bit more in detail of what we saw relative to the Star Bonds presentation. I want to give you guys a little bit of background on the timing of this and the steps that and research that's been done thus far. This has to do with the concept of sports tourism in Williamson County and the developer's desire to see a field, multi-use sports complex built for that specific purpose. And I'll let him explain more about the numbers of that, but I want to be, as an introduction, tell you that despite that this is being discussed tonight, this has been long planned, and just on at least Rodney's part, you can see when I pass out some information to you after he gives his presentation, there's quite a bit of work that's gone into it. It's my decision on the timing of this to not discuss it until now. I insisted that we end up figuring out where we were with star bonds. That was a much bigger and frankly a lot more work to see if we got over that hurdle. We did. Frankly, I needed a hot minute, needed to take a deep breath before this phase of it. And the reality of this, which I will get into more after Rodney's presentation, is this is not something the city can do on its own. So a conversation was had with Williamson County government, and Commissioner Marlowe, thank you for joining us tonight. That meeting was last week. They heard a presentation similar to what you're here tonight from Rodney. But basically, I can't speak for the board, and frankly, you probably can't either, but what we did take away is a polite way of saying is there was enough interest on the county's part to have subsequent conversations. Frankly, had that answer been no, we probably wouldn't be here tonight. So the reason that we approached the county first, frankly, is without a partner, this is not doable. With a substantial partner, including the developer and their monetary participation, I think it's very doable, and I'll get into that math a little bit at the end. But I just wanted you to understand the timing of it a little bit and why the county knew a little bit more about it prior to you guys doing it. And that's the why, because if they had said, no, this is not for us, then it would have probably just died at that point. That being said, time is of the essence with this. The people that you met at the Star Bond presentation that were interested in developing the Oasis Golf, Pickleball, Soccer Complex are also chomping at the bit to see this sports complex be built. And so ultimately, not time to put any pressure on the county or on us. We have a lot of due diligence yet to do, but time is of the essence, and now is the time that we start this conversation in earnest. So with that all being as a predicate to Rodney's presentation, I'll ask Rodney to come up, and we've got this big screen TV now for you guys to watch some of these slides, including the council. You guys are welcome to scoot down here. Jim, if you can't see it, we'll just snuggle up and act like we like each other. And then after Rodney is done, I'm going to present the council with a framework that will subsequently need to be discussed with the Williamson County government. But before Rodney starts, I want you to understand what the ask is of the Marion City Council as in terms of tonight, so that you don't get overwhelmed by all this information. My only ask tonight, there's no vote, it's just more of a discussion, is this compelling enough, or are we off our rocker, that we need to have a subsequent conversation together with the county board to figure out what the next steps are with legal counsel and such. If not, we won't have that meeting and it dies. But this can't be all in my head or Rodney's head. We need to get this out there, and we need to talk to our hopefully willing partner about how this is funded. And then so I'll circle back with you with some printed information. I'm not going to give you now because I don't want you thumbing through it while he's showing you the pretty pictures. So anyway, hope I didn't take too much of your time, Rodney, but if you just want to go ahead and get into it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Absher, City Council. It's good to be here tonight. Everybody keeps telling me this gets easier to get up and talk in front of people, and I don't believe it. It hasn't yet, but Mayor Absher has asked me to encapsulate some of the things that I've been working on over the last few years, and you guys are familiar with star bonds. We were fortunate enough to get that enacted a couple of weeks ago, and I think that creates an amazing opportunity for Southern Illinois, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm going to talk about the other things that I was working on concurrently while we were working on Star Bonds. And Mayor Absher is correct. The sports tourism part of this kept coming up, but he's really good at keeping me on the straight and narrow. So every time we would bring it up, it would be not now. We've got other things at hand, and the truth is these things go together, and hopefully I'll show you guys where that is the case. Star Bonds, what happened, it created an opportunity for all of us to get some of the state dollars that normally goes to Springfield and Chicago. I mean, I know I have said it, and I'm sure you have thought it or said it as well. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get some of those state dollars that go north, if we could get to keep them here in Southern Illinois? And, you know, could we do a better job of spending that money than someone else does for us? And my answer to that has always been, I think so, and now we have the opportunity to put our money where our mouth is, and I intend to do just that. And I am very grateful on behalf of my team and I that we were chosen as the master developer, and it's something we take very, very seriously. And quite frankly, I feel like our job was to try to create a destination user, but try to bring as many people here to Southern Illinois as we possibly could. I feel like that's our goal. So I'm going to use some pictures and show you how sports tourism kept coming up. Moving forward, this is just like at Harley-Davidson, where we tried to create an environment that was inviting and brought people from around the country to come here to Southern Illinois, to Marion, Illinois, and purchase motorcycles. Oasis Outdoors does that also, and these are some of the things that are going to be in the mall and around the mall, entertaining things such as, you can, sure everybody can see that pretty easily. That's a pretty big TV when you're standing right next to it.
Bondi, you can take that microphone out of that stand if it's more comfortable from craning your neck around there.
Okay, all right.
Face the TV, or even if you want to turn the podium around.
Well,
I don't want you to
a
break
little
it.
bit. All right.
It's okay. That's why it
You
moves.
see how it's struggling there a little bit?
Okay.
All right. This is just some of the ideas that we have, and this is going to be a lot bigger than some of the things we did at Black Diamond, but along the same ideas. And again, we're bringing everybody. Next slide. We're bringing everybody here, not just to do business in our district, our Star Bond district, which is really what brings the state money here to Southern Illinois, but everywhere here in the Southern Illinois area. We want people to spend money at any of those places. Okay, so here's what I've learned that the legislation didn't tell us. If you look at this is kind of the development and things that we've been working on with the mall being redeveloped as Oasis Outdoors. But what kept coming up, and as we were figuring out a way to bring more people here, was the thing that you see up there at the top part of the screen, the number 6, which is the sports complex. And I'm not a sports guy, so it wasn't something that was on the forefront of my mind. I knew that the legislation told us we had to have, but in the back of my mind, the whole time my job was to try to get as many people here as possible. And so I never looked away from something that made me think that it could help bring that to fruition. So sports complex kept coming up, and I did bring that idea to Mayor Absher early on. I think at the beginning when I approached him with it, the price tag that I had been given on a sports complex, similar to what you're looking at, was around $40 million. When he got done laughing at me, he thought that was a little high and told me to focus on Star Bonds, and I'm really glad he did, because that was the task at hand, and that was the legislation that needed to be concentrated on. So kind of set it to the side and kept moving forward with some of the other things that you see on the screen, but it just kept creeping back into the discussion. I think the second time that I came to Mayor Absher. I went to someone else hoping I could find a cheaper way to do the sports complex. And I don't know if you remember, but I think the price jumped up to like $60 million. So
That was the wrong way.
yeah. So if you thought he laughed at me at the beginning, you should have seen that encounter. But instead of talking about the money as much, we started having dialogue about the mechanism of sports tourism and what it does. It was still out of the realm of possibility at that time, but it did start the discussion. So this is it just keeps coming back that, and again, my job, try to get as many people here as possible to utilize this incentive that has been given to us by the state of Illinois. So I just couldn't find anything that drove people like sports tourism. I just couldn't. There wasn't, so at Harley-Davidson, yes, we were very successful in bringing people from all over the country, but it took us 15 years to bring people from 34 states. With sports tourism and the consultants that we've been talking to about it, we can achieve that goal in probably more like 3 years to get people from all over the country. And again, that's the name of the game, to get people here so they'll spend money not only in our district but in our region to help generate growth for our area. This is an example of a place we went to and looked at. All right, this is, it's called Lake Point, and it's in Cartersville, Georgia. And if you'll notice, up here in the picture, this is a satellite view of it. There's nothing else there. This is a sports complex that's been built in the middle of nowhere. And it has 8 baseball fields, 3 soccer fields, and it has an indoor facility that's really nice, and it has volleyball and basketball. But look at how far people have come to go to this place. And it opened several years ago. People that are coming from San Antonio, from New York, and then from the tip of Florida to the northern part of the states. And there's nothing else there. That's what I wanted to show you. I mean, there is maybe 2 hotels there now. But we have so much more to offer already here. We have so much infrastructure in place. If they, in the middle of nowhere, can bring this many people to them, what can we do? How can we make this more powerful than what they've done? Which, as you can see, they've made it pretty powerful. So we didn't stop there. Mayor Absher requires a lot of data, and so we knew we had to do a little more homework on it. And this was all during the time we were working on Star Bombs. So we went to 4 more locations. We went to Rocky Top, which is in Gatlinburg. Went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and then Hoover, in Hoover, Alabama. These are all very successful tourism destinations, and they've been built for different reasons. Some of them were to truly drive the economy, and others were to try to fill existing hotel rooms that they didn't feel were being utilized well enough. And so this is, these are all, they've all been funded by public municipalities or agencies that are public, and not so much on the private side. Not a lot of private involvement. The private involvement is typically whenever the municipality will choose someone to run these facilities for them. So that's what we saw, and they were all very successful locations. So here's what excites me about our opportunity here. None of those locations that I just have shown you that are bringing people from all over the country are as strategically located as what we are. We're right here in the center. We're almost in the population center of the United States. We have all these large cities and metropolitan areas around us. We already have infrastructure. We have a great interstate system that basically leads everybody right to us. On the left, you can see the natural traffic patterns that flows through our area. And there's just nothing that I could find that would cause people to come directly to Marion, Illinois and spend their money in Southern Illinois than what we saw with the sports fields. So we have the best location, I believe, right here in southern Illinois, right here in Marion, Illinois. So how do we maximize this opportunity that Star Bonds has given us by allowing us to keep those sales tax dollars that would normally go to the state? This, to me, is the answer. We build this sports complex, which has been developed over the last 2 years, after continuously trying to get the price down, but not just get the price down. That wasn't really, you gotta remember, our first and foremost goal. How do we get the most people to come here to Southern Illinois? So that's, when we had these built, that's what we said for them to focus on. How do you get the most people here? How many fields do you have to have? Do you need indoor facility? Do you need multi-purpose locations? And here we have 16 baseball fields, 17 if you count the championship field in front. We have 160,000 square foot indoor sports facility, which houses 2 more baseball fields and another, not and, but in addition, it can also be utilized as a full soccer field. And for orientation, this is Sioux Drive over here on, coming into it. It's north, is that way. You can see the pavilion in the background. And so this is takes up what would be the east side of Sioux Drive in that area. So just to talk about the numbers just a little bit, and you know, the people that this brings to town, there's 285,000 non-local visitors that will come. There will be definitely more visitors than that, but they specifically just stated the ones that were going to be spending the night. And I think they're, for every family that spends the night, I think they estimate about 3 people to a room. But what it did, though, it created almost 85,000 room nights by year 5. And the money that these people spent that came here to Southern Illinois was $36.3 million. Now, that's not economic impact. That's money out of their pocket that they spent in our area. So think of the sales tax that comes back to us if it's in the Star Bond district, but not only that, around the entire region, the businesses that it helps. So moving on, so we ran into a really cool group of people whenever we were trying to figure this out. Oh, by the way, that I was going to tell you, the place in Georgia that I showed you that had the 8 ball fields and 3 soccer fields, that person spent $100 million on that facility. Didn't even think about trying to do that. So approaching you with that number, but that's the kind of numbers that some people that don't do their due diligence perhaps are spending on these types of facilities. But Mayor Absher made it crystal clear that you know, we had to get it to something that was reasonable, and quite frankly, we didn't have time to prove the concept. We were so busy working on everything that was Star Bond related. But we ran across these guys when we were trying to find a solution. We were trying to figure out a way. It became really apparent to me that this was the answer. We've got to figure out a way to inject sports tourism into our development to bring people to our area. So we ran across these guys a while back, and their CEO got on a plane with us and traveled around the country with us, looking at other facilities and trying to help us understand what would give us the most impact for the least amount of dollars. And we basically reached that minimum we needed to build. So if you'll go back a slide, another one. This was really the minimum number of fields we needed to have to be able to bring the mass of people that we felt like we needed to make the biggest difference, if that makes sense. It didn't make any sense for us to build 8 fields and spend $25 million if we just had really, really nice fields, but it didn't serve the purpose of what my objective was, which what I was hired to do, which was bring people to this area. So moving back forward again, these guys just helped us figure out a way to build the fields you see for $35 million. Now, right now, we're at about 35 and a half, and 35.5 million. We know we're going to get there, but I'm not really here to talk to you about the numbers as much as Mayor Absher is. My job is to tell you how powerful this is across the country, and quite frankly, the places that are growing, the destinations that we see across the country, they have one of these that are close to them. They go hand in hand. They just go together. I know the timing's not perfect, and believe me, there were plenty of days when I wished I didn't have two things that I had to focus on at the same time, but that's just the way the cookie crumbled, and this is where it led us. These guys at Mammoth, they've come up with this concept, and they're building it in other places in the country. As Mayor Absher said, they are chomping at the bit to be here. They want to be here. We're in their top 3 locations to build in the entire United States, and they've looked at 114 different locations. So it's not like we haven't had a lot of competition. It's just everything that we have going. Star Bonds is a huge part of that. These are the economic development numbers. I think Mayor Absher might or might not share these with you. I know he's going to share a feasibility study with you, so I'm not going to get into the numbers. At this point, there's a lot of economic development that happens with any one of these. At the top, you have the Star Bond project. In the middle, it's the sports complex. And then at the bottom, you even have the golf and pickleball complex and how much each one of them do individually. None of these feasibility numbers take into consideration all 3 of these being at the same place at the same time. So there is a definite compounding factor that goes with putting this at the same place at the same time. And so this is where it becomes your guys' responsibility, I guess, to decide whether the city, I guess, first of all, wants to do something like this, and secondly, can afford to do something like this. But I present to you that this will be more powerful than anything I could do to bring people to this location. It doesn't mean Star Bonds won't be successful without it. What I'm saying is we have this once in a lifetime opportunity with Star Bonds to get as much of the tax dollars from the state right here and keep it here in Southern Illinois. If we really want to maximize it, then you have to couple it with the most powerful way to get people to come here and spend their money here. And I would love for somebody to come up with another solution, because it would be amazingly powerful. This is really what I come up with. This doesn't happen because I want it to happen. In fact, I don't even think it happens because you guys want it to happen as a group. As Mayor Absher said, we had a meeting with the county last week and presented something similar to this, talked a little bit more about Star Bonds and let them know how that worked. But thankfully, they were very interested in being a part of it. But it doesn't happen with any one entity. It truly, and for a lot of good reasons, the collaboration is so important anyway, but it takes everybody working together to make it happen. And there's not, and again, we travel the country looking for places that were trying to do these things, and they just can't get the job done because they don't have the collaboration like we have here in Southern Illinois. So it's what keeps me here and makes me thankful that I'm doing business here. But so now Mayor Absher, I think I turn it over to you and your group. But thank you very much for the opportunity to work on it.
Questions of you specific?
Sure.
First?
Yep.
Or do you want to hear my presentation and then come back, circle back with questions?
Come back.
Which one?
Come back.
Come back? Okay, so don't run away.
I'll stay.
Okay. I don't have these to put up on the screen, so for those of you, you'll just have to stare at the pretty picture. And I'm going to go back out to the podium so I can talk to you guys and not have to. So that. The thicker packet that you have is the actual feasibility study, and we are not going to go through that. I'm giving this to you for you to study. I do want, you'll see on kind of highlighting a little bit of what Rodney said. I think it's on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll see a red mark that I've got through a $49 million figure, because that was this particular vendor at that time, what they thought the facility would cost, but that included a road that needed to be built, which we have secured funding through other mechanisms, through the state and other organizations. So anyway, as Rodney intimated, he thinks the number is 35 million for the picture of what you saw. So kind of what Rodney talked about was the what this is. The thinner packet that you have is all my work product. And this is a spreadsheet that I have, and I'm going to say some predicate remarks before we dig into this. Because it's my work product, it may be wrong. There's a lot of assumptions. For example, an interest rate on the loan, term of the loan, other terms and conditions of the loan that I don't have nailed down to the nth degree just yet, specifically the interest rate. We had scheduled a meeting tomorrow with the United States Department of Agriculture locally here to try to nail down some of that stuff. So I'm hopeful that you'll find this all compelling enough that I can still attend that meeting and nail those down. But that's an example of one of the inputs here that I'm talking about. In other words, we think we can get 3.875, but that may or may not be the case. So the first page of this, just to orient you, is by year who would be what we've discussed with the county, what I'm proposing the city's contribution be to it, which would be $1.2 million a year paid out of our hotel use tax. The county has discussed but not approved, so that's not for sure, but two components that would bring them to a little over a similar amount. And in year 1 and 2, the developer has committed to donating $2 million towards this project. In addition to a very big detail that is not yet figured out, but very likely that he would be asked to donate his land to the city if this were to be built. There's a lot of pressure. So this first page just sort of gives you the overall math input. In other words, where does that money come from? If you turn to the second page, there's a schedule of inflows and outflows. Now I want to predicate all of this with this statement. I looked at this as though this was a business opportunity. In other words, if I were investing in a business, how would I approach this as a business opportunity? Where am I going to get the funds to pay for it? What's that cash flow look like, which is on page 2? What are all the things I can think of that need to be a part of that cash flow? For example, when things break, where does that pay for? You can't ignore those things. And more importantly, what's the return on that investment? I don't know that government thinks like this typically, but I just wanted you to understand why this is laid out this way, because it may not be the way a government entity thinks of it, and I would encourage the county to think along the same line. But when do we get our money back? Or do we get our money back? So this page 2 shows simply this. If you follow, it's one thing to make the monthly or the yearly debt service payment. That's column 1 there. That's simply a function of how much we would be borrowing from USDA, what the interest rate is, and what the term is. Like I said, I need to nail down some of those terms tomorrow. I think Commissioner Razor is planning on attending that meeting with us still. Is that right? Wendy, I hope, will be attending. I don't know if the county council is going to attend that meeting or not, but nonetheless, several of us to try to nail down some of that. But that payment is only one element of this. You also, the second column is capital expenditures. That's when stuff breaks. There's a lot of due diligence that needs to yet to be done on that part as a yearly reserve. But I will tell you that one of the major components to this, Rodney didn't mention this, but this is all planned on being artificial turf on every one of these fields, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal for playability. It's a big deal for attractability, for getting all these tournaments in here. That's what they want, is to play on this kind of turf as opposed to a grass field. You can get into whether you save more money or not by watering and seeding and mowing and all that, or using alternative turf, but that's not what my argument is. I'm saying that it's the market seems to strongly prefer the artificial turf. The problem with it is come about year 12 of use, which appears here as year 13, because we'll have time, if we build it, to build a facility. The first replacement of the turf only, as you can see there, is $5.5 million. So the goal here in this sheet of all these cash flows is to make sure, well, let me walk you through it. So you've got your payment in column 1. Column 2 is all the stuff that we're anticipating on having to spend, which includes the turf replacement. That's the big number. And then each annual year there you can see. But the revenues are really the sum total of what you saw on the first page. That's the money coming in. So in year 1 there, you'll notice that the cash flow is positive of $1.276 million, and therefore that's what's in the end of year fund balance. One of the other inputs on the first page is what can we earn on interest on that money that's left in that fund balance and help to use pay for this thing. And that's actually in the fourth column. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth column is the or money market interest, or however this ends up being invested. But as you can see, it's significant based on today's rates if we are able to have an end of year fund balance. The only reason in even walking you through this is what my eye has always gravitated to is to make sure two fundamentals here in that right-hand column is that we had enough money at the time that the turf needed to be replaced so that this thing was sustainable, so that no one, including ourselves, is coming back to the city or the county going, oops, we forgot this one big thing, and now you got to raise taxes, or you got to do something to, or this thing unwinds, it won't work. So my goal was to make sure that at any given time there was enough in reserves to at minimum pay for that big expenditure. And that's really what this sheet is laid out to be. There may be a lot of things that I have not considered. Again, this is my work product. These are just the things that I do know. I may not have included, obviously, the things that I don't know yet. And so I'm, in part, depending on you and ultimately the county board, to think through all that stuff. Not just math, but all the other issues that we potentially have to think through so that this is a success and not a failure. Now, on the third page, now this is specific to the city, not to the county. I'll leave the county to do your own math. But this speaks to, okay, the return on investment. In other words, if we're outlaying, well, first of all, and Ashley's here from Williamson County Tourism Bureau, I have to say that we levy taxes on hotel stays with the part statutory responsibility and part implied responsibility to spur on more hotel stays. Williamson County government funds through their bed tax Williamson County Tourism Bureau. You're supposed to be the overarching thing when we talk about, and this is for the audience, I want you to understand when we're talking about tax dollars here, this is all hotel tax revenue that we're talking about spending. This is exactly what you may not want sports fields, but the concept of bringing a few 100,000 people to town to stay in your hotels, it's exactly how we're supposed to be using that money. It's not just ours to spend on fire trucks. That's not what this taxing mechanism is, okay? That being said, it's still got to make sense for the city, for the county. It certainly is going to make sense for the hotel owners, I can promise you, because they're going to be full. It's that simple. So here's, again, the numbers are very simple here, but they're all derived from that thicker packet in your feasibility study that you can study in depth. But here's what it means to the city. With all these new hotel stays, and again, the hotel stays take a while to scale, to ramp up. First of all, it takes a while to build the field. Second of all, to market the whole mechanism and such. But the new hotel night stays will generate revenue at our sales tax, or excuse me, at our use tax rate, according to the feasibility study. Now, the feasibility study does not study this in terms of city taxation, so that's what page 3 is. That's my work product, is taking their numbers on what is estimated to be spent and looking at how that affects our taxing body. So in year 1, as you can see how much would be generated in new hotel night tax revenue, and based on all the other stuff that they spend money on while they're here, according to the feasibility study, you can see how much other taxes, just regular sales taxes, would generate. So as you can see, when you balance that up against our outlay of $1.2 million, our actual outlay is $67,000. That's actually what it's quote-unquote costing us by using this mechanism. But you will see in year 2, year 3, and on, and again, based on the feasibility study, that is not my work product. In full disclosure, that's SFA's, and you've got that to study. I'm taking their numbers and extrapolating our tax structure on those spending numbers. But as you can see, by year 5, the city is net positive by over $500,000. And if you don't think that number's correct, cut it in half. And if you don't like that one, cut that one in half, but it's still positive. And so the goal here is to create, and maybe this is all the discussion, you either believe in sports tourism, and I would submit to you and to everybody that's listening to this, this was not a part of my family. My kids played rec league ball. But we struggled to put rec league teams together because everybody was playing travel ball. That's the reality. And whether you're talking about baseball or football or soccer or any of the other sports that could conceivably be played on these multimodal fields, even the local teams, our flag football team in junior high quickly became a travel team. We just didn't sign up for a travel team. But we had to go to Mattoon and Charleston and every other place to find a team to play us. So even the rec league stuff ends up being a situation where we can attract people here. And anybody that's experienced that knows how expensive it is to go 200 miles away so that you spend a weekend and play in a ball tournament. What's expensive to the player's family, though, is revenue for the municipality in terms of tax revenue. So you either buy into that, or if you've ever experienced it, I think that's easily understood. I can't attest to SFA's numbers as to whether they're the experts on determining how the fields will be used, whatever. So I'm just taking their numbers and extrapolating at what point do we actually not have a net outlay of money. Now, from the general fund standpoint, so our hotel taxes, there's 2 components to that, by the way, but they ultimately end up in the general fund revenue along with everything else, and then money is transferred to the project fund each year depending on whether we have our project needs and that kind of thing. In the short term, what I'm telling you is I would recommend that whatever amount that we're outlaying for this would not affect the general fund, would not affect our operations, because we'll reduce our transfer or our revenues to the project fund in the short term. All I would ask is, as this new revenue starts to come in, we put it back in the project fund so that we can continue on the way that we are now. But in all good faith, I can tell you that after I've studied this number, we literally are far, it's hard for me to find a reason that this is not compelling. It's hard for me. I just can't imagine it not being interesting enough. I'm not asking you to say, oh yeah, let's commit to this right this second. We're not there yet. I understand that. But I believe that this is in our best interest. I know it's in the best interest of the hotels who were levying the tax on their users to begin with, for us to create this virtuous economic ecosystem that is self-feeding. The more hotel stays you got, the more hotel tax it generates that you can turn around and feed that back into this ecosystem. And I actually believe that despite that would be a 25-year loan presumptively from USDA, if this works the way that it appears that it would work, I think we could actually pay the loan off quite a bit earlier, but I haven't even gone through that. My fear was it would be like it is in business. You'd end year 12, 13, 14, 15 before you had any return whatsoever on the outlay. This is much better than that, if SFA's numbers are correct. And that's not my work product. I want to be transparent with that. That's me taking what they think and translating that to what it looks like as our picture. Haven't studied that completely, Jim, from the county standpoint, because your primary revenue source is property tax, not the 0.25% sales tax, but you get the idea. It's got the same basic mechanism there that has the same general effect for the county's finances. But that's what my work has shown up to this point. And like I said, my ask is simply not a formal vote. And would it be okay for you to take, first of all, we can't schedule a meeting for sooner than 48 hours or 2 days. If it's possible, I'd like to have a meeting by the end of the week, or at the very latest first of next week, depending on what the county commissioner's schedule is, to meet, give you guys a few days to absorb and study this. And that's my ask, is it promising enough in your eyes, at first blush, seeing all of this, to at least warrant a further conversation to see if we want to partner with the county, to see if this truly is something we all want to do, is feasible, or if the numbers, whether it's the feasibility study or my math or anything, if it's got holes in it, we need to vet that out. I would like to go to this USDA meeting tomorrow and make sure that some of our assumptions are within the realm of probability, so to speak. So that's my spiel. So we'll leave it up to questions either of Rodney or of me at this point. And I just need your feedback. Is this something that's interesting enough to you, that you believe is compelling enough, that we take the next step with the county and meet with them jointly and determine if there's a next step to take or not?
A couple of questions I had that popped into my mind as I looked over this chart on page 2. We have, looks like, replacing the turf at year 12 and at year 24, which is a normal probably life cycle for that. In our chart, have we made allowances for to anticipate increased labor and material costs in that?
On year 25?
Yes.
Not really. That's about a 20% increase. I find that to be, here's the reality. I think maybe that piece can't be known at this point. I don't know how you estimate what the turf is going to be.
You don't know. I'm just thinking if there was a X number of percentage that we built into the chart or the spreadsheet. to
Not
say-
for that particular piece. Here's what I really think will ultimately happen. And I'm going to take a leap and make some assumptions on something that Rodney may not be willing to do. Here's the reality. I'm quite certain that 25 years from now will be different than it is now.
Absolutely.
Maybe sports tourism doesn't exist at that moment in time. Maybe people don't play softball, baseball, soccer, basketball, volleyball, pickleball. Who knows? Maybe there's a different sport. Or maybe everybody's gamers and they don't play outside or inside actual sports anymore. Who knows? But because of our loan period of 25 years, which is really what it takes to make this affordable, in my opinion, what I think this does is it would force a conversation between whoever the leaders at the county and the leaders of the city are at that time going, okay, what's this landscape look like? Do we want to continue to support this? Do we want to replace the turf at this point? I think that's the more likely scenario. It might cost $12 million to replace the turf at that point. Who knows? And the leaders at that time might not be willing to do it. And maybe that's okay. Maybe we got 20 plus years of tourism dollars out of it. And we say, we're not supporting it anymore. The fields are defunct. And I'm pretty sure at that point, Rodney would want his land back. So that's one of those many, many things that has to be ironed out, as if those what ifs. But maybe at that point, it's not a thing. I don't know. But it's very difficult to predict what the world looks like 25 years from now, much less how much specifically that turf would cost. So if you don't like that specific number, you can plug a bigger one in there. But the reality is, I think that necessitates that conversation between the leaders at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be 80 years old then, so it's not going to be me. It's going to be somebody else. It's probably going to be successors to Rodney, successors to all of us. So I think that's the more logical expectation, is that they have to have, the leaders at the time have to have a conversation even before you decide to replace the field the second time.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You know, even the first time that we replace it, assuming that it's still working at year 12, you know, again, the question, have we allotted or made an allowance for those increased costs? And it looks like it's going to work no matter what. But my point was, you know, who would have thought we would have been paying $4 or $5 for a dozen of eggs, you know, 2 years ago? We don't know what's going to happen, but I think there needs to be a little bit of padding, maybe built in, just to cover our bases. We may miss it big, but at least we got a little bit extra in there to cover those increased costs. And
Well,
I think you know as well as I do, it's probably not going to come down.
I agree with you, but rather than try to guess and stab of how much that was and when those expenditures
Yeah.
would be, what I'm pointing to you is that bottom right-hand number, that even after a second turf replacement, well, let's look at it the year before the second turf replacement. You've got a fund balance of over $8 million at that point based on these contributions. So I guess the logical thing is, if the turf costs more than $8 million and the county and the city would have to contribute some extra at that point, that very well might be the decision point.
Maybe the tipping point anyway.
Might be the tipping point or whatever. But I don't know where to plug in those numbers, but that very positive number before that second field replace is what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Is it always positive? Is there enough there that can cover the things we don't know how much and when they'll be? So in other words, there's no point where the fund that manages this goes to zero and that everybody has to squirm. At least that's my math.
Right.
Yep.
One thing about it, if inflation continues to drive the prices of the turf higher, it's probably going to drive the price of the motel stays higher, which is going to in turn drive more tax coming in. So
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. I just don't know how that would.
I don't know how you would qualify that as far as putting it on paper, but you know, if things continue to increase, if the turf increases, everything else is going to be increasing too. And that's going to drive those numbers up on the cash flow that's coming in.
That's a good point.
Well, I've got 3 points. One being when the Department of Revenue head was here last week, he and I spoke after the meeting and found out that we both had kids in soccer, baseball, etc., doing this exact thing. And it was funny. I've never met the man in my life. We knew 5 complexes just like that. I said, "You ever play Mike Rose in Memphis?" "Oh yeah, I love that." "You ever play Little Rock?" "Oh yeah, we've been there." So believe me, people that are in this realm will know the top places to go. And something that stands out to me from way back when this was first talked about was the fact, and I think it might have, I don't know if it was SFA or whoever presented this, but they said, as you look at these complexes around the country, okay, now you got a bunch of teams, let's just say from Memphis, that are down there now. They've got established teams, and they're going to travel. Well, they look at St. Louis, and then they look at us. We've got as good or better facilities as St. Louis. However, a Drury and stay in St. Louis is $219 a night, and a Drury and stay here is $149. So when you start comparing the spend that those teams are going to have to make to enjoy the same level of fields, and you compare a metro area to a non-metro area, we're going to stand out like great, because now these teams can 20% less spend and have the same experience or better than what they're going to get. You know, they may have more to do in St. Louis than we're going to have, but I bet you they don't have more than that place in Georgia that has a cornfield over there and a bean field over there and 2 hotels and a McDonald's. So, you know, I think this will be positioned very well for that. So I think those are all 3 very positive things. And I can tell you as a parent of somebody who's done this for a long, long time, I don't see it slowing down. I just don't. As a matter of fact, when I see Facebook pages of my friends and even their kids now who are there now into it, they're going further and more expensive than we ever did. So.
I think a big key is the region and its proximity to other similar facilities. Right now, we go to O'Fallon with our travel team. We go to Evansville, which are 2 awesome parks, very similar to this. We do go to Cape Girardeau, but it's not anything like this. Paducah's got a fairly nice park where they host tournaments, but let's face it, if I've got the choice between Evansville here or what was the other one I said? O'Fallon. This is centrally located. Based on your map, there's a ton of people that would come here because of its location. And like John said, for a lot less money.
Could I comment on that? Just so I'm not the sports guy.
Do you mind come up to the microphone so that the camera can pick up your comment, please?
Yeah. So the information that was driving our decisions as we built these was the experts, the people that are putting on these tournaments, that are talking with the parents and what they want. And it wasn't any influence from me personally. It was truly just, it was completely data driven. So they intentionally built it along with knowing what we were putting in the star bonds and the entertainment things that were going to be close and nearby. And I wish you all could have been a part of some of those conversations. These people were giddy about what the possibility was, and that's why we've had so much support. People from all over the place have wanted to be a part of this, and as far as making it happen quick, we've not been advertising it, but it has gotten out, and there are people calling us that we could fill up next year by the end of next week. So it can happen that fast.
To a comment that Doug just mentioned about Evansville, O'Fallon, Paducah, and such, is there a point where these are saturated, and that, or is what's our distinguishing characteristic, if you had to name just one or two, that makes this more relevant than maybe some of those facilities, for example? I mean, that's, I don't have too many concerns, but the saturation point is one of them. Is there just too many, is there a point at which there's too many of these facilities versus the number of people that are playing these sports?
According to the experts, I mean, we're going to have all these facilities. Remember, all these fields are completely convertible. So if things adjust and say soccer becomes more popular, we've got soccer fields. If lacrosse is more popular, we've got lacrosse, we've got football, we've got all these different options, so we can adjust to whatever the market is. And well, that place in Georgia, I mean, they have 8 baseball fields that are very specifically large baseball fields, and there's no adjustment for them. So.
That's all they can play there is baseball, period.
No, they do.
They have 3 soccer fields, I think, on that
They
picture.
have 3 soccer fields also, and then they have the indoor basketball and volleyball, which.
But I'm saying the baseball fields they have, that's all that can potentially be played there. Whereas you're saying your field, if one sport fizzles out and you need to just reformat, restripe, do whatever, that's not a major capital expense to do that.
That's right. We have the flexibility to do that, and the entertainment is the other thing I was going to say. The restaurants that we have in such a tight proximity, which more are coming every day, and now Star Bonds will completely blow that up. And you'll have all this retail and fun stuff to do for the people that are within a golf cart's.
What is
drive
the
away.
one of these, I don't know if it's of this scale, that was built in Indiana somewhere that they literally built out 30 miles away from nearly everything? It's come across, do you know the name of it?
I don't know the name of it, but I know that,
And Rantoul is like that?
yeah, it's,
Is that Indiana? Grand Park? Well, and again, this has been sort of secondhand told to me, but the people that have attended it are frustrated because they literally, they might get done at a ball tournament at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And in the meantime, they've had no place to eat, no place to, their hotel's 30 miles away, so it's a 45-minute drive. And I know that would be a benefit for, at least compared to that one, but I just didn't know if there's a point at which too many municipalities build these things.
Doug, my question, your team that you travel, baseball, right?
Right.
Are those turf fields or natural?
2 two facilities have turf fields, which is Evansville and.
All of them? All the fields are turf?
Yeah, Evansville and O'Fallon.
Okay.
We go to Murray, we go to Hopkinsville, we go to a couple other towns down around Kentucky, over into Missouri a little bit. Most of the facilities, with the exception of Evansville or O'Fallon, are dirt fields or grass fields, real grass fields. And I think if you polled anybody that played on both, hands down, it would be turf fields, hands down.
and that's what they're telling us. The people that, and we're wanting people to come from all over the country, and the people that are willing to travel even 6-8 hours, it requires the turf fields.
Yeah,
for
there's
sure.
no greenouts. You don't have to worry about weather unless there's lightning. I mean, you can play in 20 minutes after it's done raining, probably less.
And we even, and again, I don't want to show my ignorance on sports, but having the dome, that allows us to not even be stopped by existing rain
Absolutely.
at the
Yeah.
time and weather. So we have a year-round facility where other places are trying to do it during 7-8 months out of the
Yeah.
year. And as far as, saturation, as I think you all see, this is no small endeavor. It's a commitment. It's a commitment that you guys have to decide whether it's the one you want to make. I think the return is beyond what anything else I could do. But I think we have so much collaboration, cooperation here in Southern Illinois. Not only will we be able to get this done with the help, if the county is willing to help, and I'm certainly willing to help as a developer, but then there's the next step, which is operating these facilities. And what we hear is there's so many different agendas at some of these different ballparks. They don't know what they want to be, so we're just trying to create a great experience so people will go back and tell somebody, so it'll be hands down the number one place that gets talked about, just because of the activities, the pictures we take and post and things like that for the people that are coming there tons of ideas that we can't even go into tonight, but that we intend to stay fresh on and make sure that we're the place that people are talking about.
I have one quick question. Go ahead.
Ronnie, probably a year or so back, kind of went in the infancy of this, we talked about one draw might be that they could play championship games in Mountain Dew Park. Is that still thinking about that or not, or would that,
Yeah.
would that be separate entities? Or?
That's really what got us, that was one of the big things that got us into that. I told a story one time about a tournament director, a tournament company that they're the biggest one in the country, Perfect Game, and I was trying to get their input on how feasible these sports facilities would be, and just couldn't get the guy to come to Marion. Thought Marion was too small, not enough people here, and so I tell the story. I mean, we literally almost kidnapped the guy and brought him to Sutherland, made him come and check out what we had to offer, and it really was just the stadium at that point, obviously. But we said, this will be our championship stadium, and at that point, the guy wanted to make this their headquarters and was all in. So it truly is just bringing people, which underscores the entire concept. We have to get people here to Southern Illinois. There's not a more powerful way to do it than these sports fields. So, and yeah, the stadium, and it puts us in a really unique situation to have all those games over there and then march the two winning teams over to the stadium to have a major league experience. So.
We only travel 2 hours. That's kind of a rule of our team that we made.
Yeah.
I mean, there are teams out there that go to Georgia, Arkansas, Florida 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
But our rule with my team or our team is 2 hours is tops that we want to travel. Only because of cost to the parents, and the time it takes to get there, time off work. So our rule is 2 hours. If you draw a 2-hour circle around Marion, that's a lot of different teams that you can draw from.
Yeah, it's about 8 or 9 million people, I think.
Yeah. Pretty powerful.
Commissioner Marlowe, do you have any comments or questions or anything that you've kind of got second dose of this? Is there anything you'd like to say?
The only real thing that I'd like to say is that from a county perspective, we've agreed to work with the city government. After listening to Rodney's proposal, I do think it's in the best interest of both governments to work together on this, and I think it's very plausible that we could work together on this to see through. The county as well as the city has a lot of questions on this. So we're going to need to ask a lot of these hard questions and get some of these answers, But as far as you've hit on all the topics, all the talking points, you're looking at someone who would go to Peoria to watch your 5-year-old grandson play hockey. I mean, and if we spend the night, there's not one of us that look at the bill that we pay on our hotel bill. It's just part of the cost of going to see your kids or your grandkids, and you just pay the bill and move on. And so that, with that, and the other point of the trend in sports in the travel teams, I agree. I think this is a trend that is just going to grow. I think this is a good opportunity. There's a lot of questions to be answered. We have a lot of questions. I personally do. I know the 2 other commissioners do as well, and I can't speak for them on this. But so far, we have agreed. We're interested in working with City Council of Marion, and together. What I've always stated is whether it be Marion or Heron or any other community within Williamson County, when the municipalities do good, the county does good. We benefit as well. So let's, see what we can do, work together on this, and we're working with a guy that's not a fly-by-night operation here. Rodney has been, instrumental. It seems like whatever he puts his mind to usually works out good. So I think the time's right. So thank you.
Ashley, you're an expert in tourism. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I didn't know you'd be here tonight. Is there anything you'd like to say or comment on?
The only comment that I really have is that we know from the tourism perspective that the leisure traveler spends a lot of money when they travel, but the sports traveler spends at least 150%, sometimes up to 300% of what the leisure traveler does. I know extensively from my own personal experience that we would pay more for travel for dance or baseball, and I think it's a wonderful thing.
Okay. So, again, I told you I wasn't going to ask for a vote or anything like that. I'm just saying, are we on board enough to take additional steps with the county at this point?
So,
Doug?
absolutely.
John?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to circle back with the chairman tomorrow and get some times and dates that you guys have available? And then the logistics of that's going to be a little tricky, figuring out how to get 8 people's schedule lined up, but yeah. But you want me to talk to Chairman Atkinson?
We're gonna, have all your contact, he'll be our contact.
Okay. Okay, well, it's really more than the 8 of us. You'll need your council, I'll need Wendy. So it's at least 10 people now that I can think of. So are you guys able to have a meeting during the business day?
I'm usually open after about 9:30 p.m.
What? No. Okay, there's 9 of us I have to arrange the schedule with. Just kidding.
I'm out Friday, but I'm good the other day.
Other than Friday, you
Yeah.
could, okay. Because I know you guys normally meet during the day.
This week is out, though.
It is?
2 of us will be gone, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We do have a meeting set up already Friday. So.
Monday?
Start next week. I'd say start with that.
Okay. What do you guys got going Monday?
I'm out Monday in Dallas,
When are you back?
Monday night, after 9:30.
How's Tuesday?
Tuesday's okay.
Anybody can't do Tuesday? Okay, that'll be my first choice, is to ask about that. So you can maybe tell Chairman Atkinson, I might be asking about Tuesday of next week. That's the
Tuesday the 3rd.
3rd.
Looks good.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, Commissioner reports. We'll start with Doug tonight.
I am good, Mayor. I don't really have anything to present. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, we're going to just shake it up and go from end to end.
Yeah, street department been cleaning the creek along Cherry Street and also the creek on South Market. You've probably seen the crews and equipment in both those. So, working on the washout on Van Buren Street. City street crews been heavily involved with moving up to City Hall. So, and I know there's all the city employees has helped out with that. So we want to just give a shout out to everybody that's been involved with this big move. It's a great facility. So, been doing some weeding and mowing and trash pickup on various streets around town as well. So busy times for the streets. Cemetery's looking good. Nothing to report there.
Okay, Commissioner Barwick.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Steckland.
Okay. Since the last report, the Water Department reports 5 meter pits were repaired or replaced, 4 water leaks repaired, 2 new water taps, replaced a 10-inch water main crossing mechanic crossing East Main, and 1 fire hydrant is installed. Want to let everybody know the Water Department will be starting annual flushing of the water mains to the fire hydrants starting October the 2nd. This will last the month of October and November. We'll start in the northeast quadrant for 2 weeks, then southeast, southwest, and northwest. Everything being the center square, that's your quadrants. You may experience some off-color water or stained water during the process. It's normal. Water's safe to drink. If the stained water does not go away after a few days, contact the Water Department and they will reflush that area for you. All right, second meeting, trivia night. So we got some pretty big trivia, I think, Terrence, for these. These are awesome. So, old Route 13, which we call East and West Main Street, was originally built for what purpose? I'll give you 4 choices. A bootlegging route, better access to Marion since it was the county seat, a buffalo trail, or for hauling ice?
Where's the route again?
East and West Main Street.
The total street, for what purpose?
Why was it originally built? East and West Main Street.
I'm gonna go with A,
Yeah, old Route 13.
bootleg.
Bootlegging, you say bootlegging? Okay.
Let's say the ice.
Ice,
Let's go with the ice.
he's going to ice.
I don't know.
Well,
I guess it was this.
you're all wrong so far.
Ooh,
You got it.
Curtis
It
wins
was
the
originally
prize.
built as a buffalo trail that turned into a rough trail for pioneers to follow in wagons returning east to west from Shawneetown and Harrisburg through the center of what is now Marion to Carbondale and on to Murfreesboro. Portions of this route were called the Cahokia-Shawneetown Route. The Illinois legislature passed a resolution in 1855 that turned the trail from Marion to Carbondale into a state road, and did the same in 1857 for what is now Illinois 37 from Marion to West Frankfort. So it was a buffalo trail. That was its first one. Okay. The next one is just, we're staying on the road thing. True or false? Old Route 13 was contracted to be built with wood instead of gravel. True or false?
True.
The answer is true, yes. 1857, a plank road was contracted to be built from Carbondale to Marion. The company was chartered to carry out the job, but it doesn't appear to have ever gotten off the ground, leaving travelers to trudge down the dirt road for decades. Wooden roads were more popular in the wide open prairie areas toward the north, but never found much favor in our end of the state. So it was contracted to be wood, but it was never done. Shocking.
Wow.
That's all I have.
Okay, item number 9 under miscellaneous. Is there anything else to come before the council this evening? Item 10, I do not have a need to have an executive session unless one of you do.
I have one final comment.
All right.
And that's just to give kudos to you guys and to you, because I can imagine the hours it took on spreadsheets to get all of this in place. That's pretty impressive, and a very vast use of Excel. It's way beyond me.
The harder thing was holding back until the timing was right, because honestly, Cody and my throughput, we were constrained, if you will, on star bonds. That was the gargantuan exercise that's consumed 3 years. This has been on the back burner or side burner, I guess, for a while. I've always described the sports fields as the turbocharger to the V12 engine that Star Bonds is, but I'm not convinced that it's not just as powerful. So the aggregation of both of those tools truly could make a huge difference. Lastly, I just wanted to announce that we have a hearing tomorrow night at 5 p.m. in this room. We have an opportunity for a Safe Routes to Schools grant, which will construct a sidewalk essentially from DeYoung through Fair, from DeYoung on Fair to Morningside.
And termination is usually sidewalk on one side.
Right, so
Left side of the street.
we feel like this is a long-needed project based on the pedestrian traffic for Lincoln School specifically. Does require us to have a hearing, which, like I said, will be held tomorrow night in this room at 5 p.m. I think we've mailed out notices to those that would be affected, but for anybody else that's interested in being here, we don't normally get a lot of participation in that, but so here's your opportunity. Here's your notice to do that. Hearing nothing else to come before the council, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick.
Yay.
Commissioner Webb.
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin.
Yay?
Mayor Asher.
Yay. Thank you all for attending.